So I have my little pile here. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's a bit more of a chattier one. I'm going to be talking about the books that I've kind of been reading and my favourite ones from like the past year or so. Just because I read quite a bit and I thought it'd be nice to like share my recommendations, because I always like hearing from people like what books are good or what they're reading at the moment and stuff like that. So I have my little pile of books here and I just thought I'd kind of like talk through them and yeah, just have a little bit of a chat with you guys. So the first book I read of the year last year that I got for Christmas 2016, that confused me, is the I Am Malala book. So obviously everyone probably knows about her story. I mean, it's been everywhere and this is just one of the books that kind of have come from it. This is actually the book that she wrote, so it's her story, like first-hand story about it. I think there's loads of books that are about the story, about everything that she does now and that kind of thing. I've kind of like I kind of didn't educate myself very much on this kind of subject and what she had done, and kind of after her incident and everything, like what she'd been doing afterwards. So that's kind of why I wanted this book, to kind of read it myself and like find out her story, like what she was doing before, like what she's doing after, like how she's helping so many people now, how she won like the Nobel Peace Prize, everything to do with that. So I read this book, it's amazing, it's really like inspiring. The way she writes is really nice, like she's very descriptive with a lot of her kind of like setting her scenes really nicely. So that doesn't really make any sense, but yeah, she sets her scenes really nicely with her words, and like it's just really, you know, really nice to hear how she kind of came from nothing and now she's turned her life into like saving so many people and just being a really good like spokesperson for like women's rights and just taking a stand on things like that. So yeah, that's definitely a really good book if you want to feel inspired and if you kind of like to read about people's like life kind of stories and real life kind of things. So yeah, I definitely recommend that book. The book I read last year was Everyday Sexism. Being interested in feminism and everything and the different aspects of feminism, because I wouldn't necessarily call myself a feminist, but I would not call myself a feminist. That's probably a whole other video, but I just wanted to research more into kind of feminism and people writing books about things like that, and this kind of came from it. So if anyone's heard of, I need to read it from the back here, the Everyday Sexism Project, Laura Bates is the writer of this book and also the founder of that kind of campaign. So it's a campaign about how everyday sexism kind of just happens going unnoticed, and how people should step up more, people should fight back for kind of everyday sexism in their everyday life. So it talks about how like in the workplace you can find it, like at home you can find it, just places that girls, a lot of women mostly, just brush it under the carpet and it's just like their everyday life, but it shouldn't be, and people should like stand against people like that. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of like male stories in here as well, but it's mostly women, and it's just basically kind of a summary of like statistics of what happens every day and how like normal it is that people get sexually assaulted or abused, or just like little things that happen that people just don't even realise is sexism. It is really interesting. It's quite an intense book, so like it makes you quite sad because you realise how much goes on in the world and like how horrible people can be to each other. But it is really eye-opening and again inspiring to want to stand up for these kind of rights and things like that. It's written really well, as in they're all like first-hand stories of people writing in to Laura Bates and telling them what's happened, and then also giving like statistics to actually what happens. And it also talks about like what is done about it, so like how the government bring in rules and how kind of people like this campaign for rights and stuff. So yeah, This is a really interesting book. It's another good like feminism, like women's rights, like standing up for women, inspiring type of book. And if you don't read this, then definitely go and follow the Everyday Sexism Project. I think it's on Twitter, and it's kind of like, if you just Google it, there's loads of stuff that comes up. But yeah, this is a really good one to do as well. Moving on from that, the next book I read was The Book Thief. If you like kind of darker, crimey, like not crime, but like darker books, this is a good one for you. So I'll read the back of it. So it's 1939 Nazi Germany. It's basically about a girl whose parents have been taken away to a concentration camp, and she steals books, hence The Book Thief. And then it's kind of like how her story of stealing books and being a thief kind of happens in that kind of time of the year, like the kind of time of life, like in Nazi Germany, and her repercussions and that kind of thing. It's written really well, like it has really short chapters, which I really like because I commute, and it means I can like pick it up and put it down. It's quite a thick book, but it's quite easy to get through. Like it's quite a juicy plot line all the way through, so you kind of are reading and not even realising how much you kind of read in one kind of session, and then you've like read most of the book. Yeah, it is really good. It's about like death a lot and stuff like that, so again, if you like that darker kind of subject, it's really good for that. I really enjoyed it. I can see why it'd be made into a film, and I see why it's so like popular, so definitely if that's something that would interest you, definitely give it a read. Another book I read was the new Murakami book. I say new, it's a couple years old now, but it's one of his newer ones. Murakami is my favourite author, so anytime a new book comes out, I buy it and I'll read it. So I go on my personal recommendation that he's my favourite. This is a bit of a weird one. It's a short story, so it's an easy reading one. Again, it's got a cool cover. It's all like embossed and stuff, so I was attracted to it by that. It's actually like more of a picture book, so it's like more visual than anything. I'll try to show you a little bit. How am I gonna do? So yeah, it's got like a lot of drawings and illustrations, and there's not a lot of writing. Like there's paragraphs like that of writing, and then there'll be whole pages of just like imagery. It's a really good like visual book to read, so if you just want to kind of pick it up and read parts, it's really easy to do that. It's a bit of a weird book. Like his stories are very kind of fantasy based, so be prepared for like a bit of a weird storyline and kind of like weird twists and turns if you kind of want to read it. It's basically about someone that goes to borrow a book from the library and then gets more than they bargained for, and kind of goes into this weird world within the library, and all this kind of stuff happens. I don't want to give too many spoilers away in case you're interested, but if you know this author, you will know his kind of writing style. And if you don't read this book, I recommend anything by him. If you kind of like that fantasy, bit of crime, it's all like Japanese based as well, so if you kind of like that kind of thing, then definitely go for his kind of book. But yeah, this one is called The Strange Library, in case you couldn't see there. But yeah. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about is this one, the Estee Lalonde book, Bloom. Ever since she talked about this in a video, I wanted to buy it and I wanted to see what it was like. It's basically like a lifestyle type book, so it's very personal to her, like her journey through life, and kind of how she coped with it and what the kind of stuff and like advice and things like that. So each chapter is like a different part of life, so it's like people, work, beauty, fashion, home, travel, food, things like that. The layout of this book is beautiful. Like it's just such a perfect, nice coffee table book. Like it has really cool imagery and it's just set out really nicely, and it's all like baby pink and like, I can't even show you, it's like baby pink and like nice like subtle pastel tones. It's just a really cool book to kind of have on your coffee table because it looks amazing. I love this green colour, and yeah, it's kind of one that you could like pick up and just read different chapters, and you don't have to read the whole book. You don't really have to know much about her either. Like, I'm quite a big fan of hers anyway, so it was really nice to like have a little kind of like takeaway part of her life and her advice and stuff. Yeah, I just think like if you watch her videos or if you know anything about her, she's very like methodic and like cool in the way that she approaches things in life. So that's the kind of vibe that I wanted to see through her book, and you get that, and you get her like tips for kind of being very zen about things and the way she thinks and like her thought processes and just her general kind of lifestyle tips, and it's really cool. So if you want like kind of a lifestyle-y kind of book to read, this is a good one. Yeah, and it's not too like, I don't know, not too kind of like autobiographical, which I don't normally like too much of. It's very more just like open and lifestyle-y and that kind of thing. Don't know if I explained that very well, but yeah, this is kind of one of the best out of the collection that I have chosen. So yeah, definitely give that a go. So I hope you like this kind of video. If you did like the more chatty videos of things like this, let me know in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you, and it'd be nice to do these kind of like every few months of the books that I read. So let me know if that's something you would be interested in. Because I tend to try and read quite a lot, especially on my commute and stuff. So it'd be nice to like discuss, and let me know if you have any recommendations of any books that are similar to the ones that I talked about today. I always love to hear like different recommendations of new books and things. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!